Greetings, sacred beings. Welcome to Sacred Her Story podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Natasia. And today, for our Sacred Her Story guest speaker, we have Penny Gardin Lewis. She's an author, children's playwright, and mixed media artist. And her stories and novels are a blend of poignancy, familiar memories, humor, and horror. Humor horror, not supernatural, within a mixture of fact and fiction, and sometimes an outright lie. I love this. I love this, Penny. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You. I just love that part. How you're like, yeah, and sometimes it's just a lie in your stories. And you know, I was, in our last conversation, we were talking about, your story and how you came to writing and all the things, and you have quite an interesting story.
Yeah,
And here,
stories the
go ahead.
plural.
What is it? I
I said
apologize.
stories plural.
Stories, yes, quite the stories. And now you're writing about these fiction and or what is it? What do you call it? They're fact and fiction. So a mixture of both. And I think that's so incredible. And so let's just start from the beginning because this is Sacred Her story. And this is all about, how did you come to be where you are right now? What's the backstory? You know,
Sure.
so wherever you want to start, we can start.
Okay, well, I graduated from college with a degree in industrial education. Bottom line was I was a shop teacher and I taught wood shop and welding. And I did that for about 5 years and then had my babies very close together. My girls are 12 months apart, Irish twins. And so I made the decision, my husband and I made the decision that I would quit and stay at home and raise our children. So I quit my job. And when they finally got in school and I was ready to go back in the workplace, my programs didn't exist anymore. The computer age had come to be, and industrial arts or shop was a very expensive program. So schools eliminated them, unfortunately. And so I had to find a different way. And I began getting involved in children's theater because of my oldest daughter, Megan, and some issues with her. And a psychologist had recommended we get her in theater. And so we did. And I became an active volunteer in the children's theater program, which led to a career. And in 2002, our city and little town of Carrollton, Georgia, built this magnificent facility, the Carrollton Cultural Arts Center. And I became the director of it with eventually a staff of 18. It had a theater, two art galleries, classrooms, dance studio, pottery studio, you name it, we did it all.
Wow.
And sometimes I felt like such a fraud, Jennifer. I mean, I would have artists come in my office and they would say, so can we do a plein air this Saturday in the parking lot? And I would say, sure. As soon as they would leave my office, I would get on Google and I would say, what is PLANAIR? And Google would say, do you mean PLEINAIRE? And I would say, why, yes, I do. That's exactly what I meant. Oh, it's painting outside. And that's how I learned my job, was just immersing myself in the arts. And I loved it, loved it, loved it. Well, jump ahead 20 years. And when I retired, I decided I would explore my own art. And I started with a painting. I bought this giant canvas, the biggest one I could find. And I painted this ridiculous looking cow. And my husband came home from work and he goes, so you've decided to be an artist and this is what you chose to paint. Well, I sold it the next day for $700 to a pediatrician's office. So that kind of quieted him down a little bit. And then I decided I would write a novel. And I wrote my first novel. I wrote it in 3 months. It just fell out of me. I mean, I would be in the shower and a whole chapter would come into my head, and I would like throw a towel around myself and run to the computer sopping wet and start typing. And that's how I wrote the first book. The other two took a little longer, you know, but I have published now 3 novels, and they're humorous, horrific novels, like you described. They involve my twin sister and I, my real life twin sister, Pam, and I getting involved in these different adventures. And they're totally fictional, but I embed some true stories, family stories. But I will tell you, Jennifer, everything I write about my mother is an outright lie. And I did it on purpose just because we have that kind of like laughable relationship, you know. And I remember when the first book came out, her pastor called her to her to come talk to him after church. And she walked up to him and she goes, "Yes, you wanted to speak to me?" And he goes, "Just wanted you to know I just read your daughter's book." And my mom goes, "Well, Pastor, I want you to know something. She lies. Everything she says about me is a lie." She said, "When I die, I want Amazing Grace sung at my funeral. I do not want Conway Twitty singing Lay Me Down." But I always told her, I was like, "Mama did that so you'd haunt me when you're gone from this earth. I want you to haunt me." And she goes, "Well, I will. I will."
So, okay, with your novel writing, what gave you these ideas to just, I'm going to write about this? And
Well, I'll tell you the second book, which is called Microwave is Dead. I'll tell you how that one came to be. My When I finished the first one, and the process of writing is one thing, editing takes forever. When I say it took me 3 months to write it, it took me a year to go through the editing process. And during that time, I was having to send out query letters to publishers, and that is a terrible process. Anybody that's listening that is a writer that has been involved in trying to find a publisher. And I didn't, for my own personal reasons, I did not want to go the self-publishing route. And so I began exploring. Anyway, long story short, that's a terrible process for anybody. It's very defeating, to get rejection letters and all that. But I kind of loved them. Yeah, I kind of loved them. I thought they were really positive in their rejection. But anyway, then I got a publisher and I was so thrilled. But then I went through, I know this is going to sound strange, but I went through like postpartum depression. It's like I have delivered my baby. Now what? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And and I just was sad after the book came out. And about a week later, I walked downstairs and laying on the ottoman in front of my chair was a paper napkin, which I still have, by the way. And my husband had written with a Sharpie marker, "Microwave is dead." And I went, "Oh no, I'll be honest, I'm a terrible cook if I don't have a microwave. I rely heavily on a microwave." And I just went, "Are you kidding me?" But then it struck me as funny, as most things do. And I took a picture of the napkin and I put it on Facebook. And what followed was the funniest conversation from my friends. I love to go in Facebook and find all of that and read that thread. Hundreds of messages that followed that were so hilariously funny. And the next thing you know, I'm at the typewriter typing that same day. And the second book, I have it here somewhere. This is the second novel, and it's called Microwave is Dead. And can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Yes,
And
ma'am.
it's actually, I know it sounds funny, but it's the darkest of my 3 novels. It ended up being, my brain went to some very dark places in that book, and I couldn't help myself. The brain goes where the brain goes when you're writing.
Mm.
But it's basically a story of a little lost girl that is believed to have drowned in the Tallapoosa River in Georgia. And I get involved in the search um, when I meet her father at Walmart, where I've gone to get a new microwave. And so everything that happens because my microwave died. And I get my sister involved. And my twin sister in real life has some sort of mild psychic abilities. In real life, she does. Well, I exaggerate them in all of my novels and give her more credit than she really should have. But anyway, we get involved in this
Oh
search
my
for this
goodness.
little girl. And and then meanwhile, there's the most evil character I've ever written, and he has been released from prison, and he is evil, evil, evil. And so all of these stories combine and work. I don't want to give too much away, but
I know, because now I want to read this book because I'm like, wait. How did we get microwave is dead to this little girl? And oh my goodness. And then your sister with the psychic abilities that you embellish. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. It's hilarious, but that darker side is like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You
but
know?
you know what's interesting, Jennifer? I have people that will contact me that don't know me, and they'll say, "Can you please tell me what Kara is doing?" Kara's the little girl in the book. And I'll reply back, "Thank you for writing to me, but you do realize she's a fictional character. She's not real, but she's real to a lot of people, including, I hate to say it myself. I think about her often, and I kind of like imagining what she's like as she's growing up. Um, but I do. I think about this little girl because I loved her. I loved her as I wrote about her, and what a strong character she is.
Okay,
And
so she ended up living in the end, right?
I'm
Is
not
that what I'm
saying
hearing?
you don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
people
not
are
saying,
messaging you. I'm like, I know, I'm gonna get that book, and I
would
want you to sign
anybody
it.
kill a child? Well, Stephen
I mean,
King didn't
yeah, I
kill.
was gonna say exactly him,
That's
but
the only book I ever closed in the middle of the book was Pet Cemetery. Couldn't handle that when the child was killed. Um,
I
but
read the
anyway,
whole thing.
so
Uh,
that's the second book.
but
Yeah.
thank you. But I still want to get the book too, because but I'm just like, this is so incredible. And so you said that this little girl still lives on in your head. So what is she doing?
What is she doing?
Yeah, what is she doing?
Well, for one thing, she makes pottery. She makes beautiful pottery. She's very artistic.
Hmm.
And the cover of the book, let me hold it up again. In the book, she is creating this piece of artwork in the book, and simultaneously, so am I. And we're both creating this without ever having met one another, this piece of artwork at the same time. And it's very significant to the story. This blonde girl, do you see her?
Yeah.
She is Kara's um, guardian angel.
Mhm.
And I always like to say, see if you, because I'm not very explicit as to who she is, but if you read carefully, you figure out who this young woman, she's a young woman with the beautiful ribbons in her hair. Who is she? And she helps Kara along the way. And we both draw her, but we neither one of us know her. And we draw her in the
Interesting.
story. So anyway, when you read it, see if you can figure out who she is.
I will. I will definitely. I want to definitely get that book because it's just, and I'm curious too. Would you say that Kara's like your little self, maybe?
Um,
Like another part of you?
she's a lot stronger and smarter than I ever was as a child. A lot stronger, a lot smarter. She's who I would strive to be.
Okay, she's
Live
you.
my
You're
childhood.
strong. You're I mean, come on. You you were a homemaker, and then you went into like, oh, you want to help your daughter, with whatever she was going through. Um, and so you put her in theater, and then here you become a director of a theater with
Yeah.
18 people working. And I go, how incredible is that? And with no prior knowledge or understanding of it, just this passion to help your daughter and the arts, to
You
dive into
know,
the arts.
yeah, Jennifer, I used to have teenagers and their parents come in my office a lot, and my children are so successful in the fine arts now, all three of them. And people would come in my office and they would say, how my child wants to go into theater, or my child wants to be a singer, or my child wants to be a visual artist. How, what do they do to prepare to be as successful as your children are? And I always tell them, talent is a dime a dozen. A lot of people have it, especially in theater. There's a lot of talent out there. You live out in California,
Mm.
but what sets you apart is very simple. Be a pleasure to work with.
Mm,
Just be a pleasure to work with, and you will be successful. The theater world is a very small world. Um, the literary world is a very small world. The visual arts world is a very small world, but people will know you. And if you're not a pleasure to work with, you're not going to get published. You're not going to get cast in a Broadway show. You're not going to be, get a recording contract if you are not a pleasure to work with. Very simple.
wow. I hope anyone who needed that information are listening and taking notes. Thank you for that. That's such great advice. And pleasurable people are not easily found nowadays. There's no common courtesy, and so it's always refreshing when you can meet someone and have a nice conversation that is pleasant,
Yeah.
like how we met.
What about you, Jennifer?
How we met. And I love this Microwave is Dead. And then there's other novels that you've written as well.
Sure. The first novel, Bearing Crosses, is a story. I don't like this cover. It's going to get redone eventually, but the publisher picked it. After that, I chose my covers. Um, he, I, this is a book about my twin sister and I on a journey to photograph roadside crosses because our mother wanted a roadside cross memorial when she died, no matter how she died. Again, an outright lie. My mother thinks they're awful.
And this is the one where the pastor read this book and told your
Yes.
mom.
Yes. And anyway, we get involved in a murder. I will say this, the prologue of this book is an absolute true story, because one of the characters in the book is based on my cousin Jackie, who is now deceased. She died of a fentanyl overdose a few years ago. And I wrote about her, and the prologue is about her, and it is a true story. And I don't want to give anything away, because but it's insane. It is insane.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third book took me 3 years to write. It was very complicated. It's called Dear Crabigale. Can you see it? Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, I could see it. Raise it up a little bit because it looked like kind of ghost-like there.
Oh, I lost you. Can you see me?
Oh, yeah, I can see you.
I
Can you hear
can't
me?
see you at all. What happened? Let's see.
Probably the picture went small. It's all good. Real life stuff, right? This
You
is
can
real
see
with
me now?
I can see you. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to pretend I see you because I don't. Anyway, tell me where to move it to. Left,
No,
right.
I see it. I see it clearly. In the front, it looks like a ghost.
Do you see that hideous woman on the front?
Yes, that's
Okay. Well, this story is about my sister and I hot on the trail of an evil serial killer. This time, this serial killer is targeting twins. Okay.
Oh,
And because we're twins, my mom felt like we would be a target. Not necessarily true, but she felt that way. And so, anyway, but in the meantime, my twin sister Pam has gained notoriety as a this awful advice columnist named Dear Crabigale. And so when I began writing the book, I set up a website called dearcrabigale.com. Let's see if I can try one more thing here. Get on there. I don't know. I've just flat lost you.
It's okay.
I set
I see you. Yeah, you're there.
Okay. I set up this website and I allowed people to write letters to Dear Crabigale just like it was a Dear Abby, Dear Landers letter. And then my sister and I worked together to answer these letters. They all came in, every single letter, they're in between each chapter of the book,
Mhm.
and each letter has a hateful response to it, as only Dear Crabigale would be. But anyway, I wanted Crabigale to look awful. She's this
Yeah.
old lady with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth.
Yeah, Crabigale looks awful.
Yes. Who would write to her, right? So I went up to my sister's house and I took some pictures of her. And then I age progressed the picture. I had somebody do it. And I had them Photoshop that cigarette hanging out the corner of her mouth. And when Pam saw it, she was horrified. And she said, "Well, that's really funny as long as nobody ever sees it." And I said, "Yeah, about that. It's the cover of the book." she
Oh,
forgave, she eventually forgave me, but
oh,
anyway.
you got such a humor. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, but I had a lot of fun. But I think you will appreciate this because of what you do in your podcast, and I have been stalking you. Um, but I don't concentrate in that book so much on the murdered twins as I do their mothers. And every mother in the story in the book has her own story. And so
Mhm.
the mother's stories are like little short stories within the novel. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
And they kind of stand alone. And so funny thing, I was talking to my mom one time. I was out at Lake Oconee in Georgia, sitting at this beautiful cabin on the porch, and I was working on this book. And my mother called me, and we were talking about that I was working on the book, and she said, I used to write stories. I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "I did." She said, "As a matter of fact, when I was in high school," she said, "I had this teacher named Mr. I think it was J. Rutherford or something like that. It's in the book. I can't remember. But anyway, she said, he was so mean and nobody in school liked him. And I don't know why I did it." She said that every single day, when the bell rang and I walked by his desk, I slid a piece of paper over, and it would either be a poem I had written or a short story. And I would walk out of the room. And I said, "Mom, what did he say?" And she said, "Nothing. He never said a single word." And my mom's from Tennessee, and so that's where she was in school. Anyway, she said, and then years later, uh, when we moved home from Alaska, that's where my sister and I were born in Alaska. She said, when we moved home from Alaska to Texas, we made a little side trip and we went to Tennessee to visit, my grandparents. And she said, we stopped at this little cafe, and she said, we're eating lunch in there. And then she went on, Jennifer, to describe exactly what Pam and I were wearing because my mother would remember random things like that, which I thought was so funny. But anyway, I go, "Mom, what is that?" Anyway, she said, this elderly woman came up to her and she said, "Are you Betty Ryden?" Which is my mother's maiden name. And my mom said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Well, I'm Mr. Rutherford's widow." And she said, I just want you to know how much joy you brought to his life. She said, every evening he would come home from school and he would sit down and read me either a short story or a poem you had written to him.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's incredible.
I said, Mom, I said,
Mhm.
you need a, I said, do you have any of those? And she said, no. She said, Penny, I can't do that anymore. I said, well, you're going to. I said, all the mothers in my book have stories and I need one from you. And she just said, I can't. I can't do that anymore. And I said, Mom, and she just argued with me. So
Mm.
about a month later, I opened my mailbox and there was this fat envelope in the mailbox with my mother's return address, and I knew what she had done. And so there is a story near the end of the book that was written, then edited by me, but written by my mom.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
So I put her name on the front cover with mine because she wrote that story.
Oh my goodness. Did you ever knew that you were going to be writing books?
Oh, heavens, no. You know, out of, out of desperation, I wrote plays for children when I was producing primary theater. Don't be super impressed with that. This is theater for 4 to 7 year olds.
That's
And I couldn't find anything that I liked. So my husband is very musical. I am not. But my husband scored. I would write the lyrics and he would score them. And we actually wrote 38 musicals for children, and then we sold them all over the world. And I make a whopping $20 every time one of my music, but I don't care. It was never about the money, and just about every country on the planet has produced one of my plays at some point or another. And we've got 38 of them. And they have titles like The Little Old Lady Who Lived in a Sandal. You remember the little old
yeah,
lady
old
who
lady who
lived
lives
in
in a shoe and you put
yeah.
in a sandal.
Yes. But so much fun. I miss that more than anything. Maybe something I explore here in Myrtle Beach now that my book's coming out. I may try to direct some plays here for kids because I really do miss that with retirement.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. And I just I love how you're like, heavens no. With writing these books, but you seem to have this amazing gift and knack for it. I mean,
Well, there's a wickedness that forms in my brain that I'm always apologizing for, but I blame my mother for putting it there.
well, it's the wickedness with humor, which, it makes it funny. We all have this alter ego, right? But here,
Yeah,
like this, things that, you're able to express it. And, just like how you're sharing your books, I'm just like, dang, I need to read these. I'm gonna, it sounds so interesting and just an easy read, not to think
yeah,
about, and versus, like a textbook or something. That's a
yeah,
whole nother level. And then here you wrote 38 plays for children.
yeah.
That's incredible. So I'm talking to like a celebrity right now who
Oh, no, you are not. Bye.
all
No,
over the world. You got plays all over the world that people
yeah. But
that
the fourth book coming out is not a novel. It's a collection of short stories I've written. And I took a lot of I took a lot out because I made the decision that I had so many stories set in the South that I should probably kind of isolate it to that. And so the book is called Jelly Biscuits, Stories and Conversations from the South. And the conversations fall between the short stories. And they are specifically conversations with my husband, Dan, because he is my muse and his dry wit complements my ridiculous humor. And can I read one of those to you?
Oh yes, please. Please share as much as you want.
Okay. So those are all like actual conversations, that occur, except this last one that I'm going to read. It's called it says disclosure. This was not really literally or technically a conversation, as it's not really literally or technically possible to talk to the dead without a medium and or seance. Dan recently underwent a procedure called a heart ablation. I went with him to the cardiologist to learn what this entailed prior to the procedure. All I had gotten from Dan was that it involved sticking a wire into his heart. I kind of needed more than that. The doctor drew a diagram showing a sliced view of the four chambers of the heart. He added a figure of a little stick man and drew circles to show the stick man running circles around Dan's heart, which caused a flutter or disruption of Dan's heartbeat. He then explained that under anesthesia, he would feed a dissolvable wire through the groin and in front of the little stick man, stopping him in his tracks. This I could understand. The morning of the procedure, at the pre-rooster crowing time of 6 a.m., they brought us into a curtained off room where Dan changed into fashionable hospital attire. Later, after they wheeled Dan away to the operating room, they allowed me to hang out in the curtained room in a nice recliner with a TV and remote. They said, however, that I would have to go to the waiting room when he returned for the recovery period. An hour later, I was told Dan did great, and I was escorted to the waiting room where charming health related videos about osteoporosis were playing on the waiting room television. I was not given access to the remote. Approximately 40 minutes later, the nurse came to escort me back. I told her I needed to visit the restroom first and would find my way back. Let me stop here, Jennifer, and just tell you everybody in my life knows that I'm extremely directionally challenged. As a profoundly directionally impaired person, it took me some time to meander my way back to the little curtained room. When I walked in, I was horrified. My husband looked dead. He was stiff and unmoving. His head was tilted back, making his face look oddly elongated. I thought to myself, they killed him. I said his name, but he didn't so much as flutter an eyelid. I approached his bed and said his name again. Nothing. I leaned over to kiss him. When my lips were about 3 inches from I realized it wasn't Dan. I was in the wrong little curtained room. He just looked like Dan, but deadish. I backed out quickly, relieved the man's loved ones hadn't come in and caught me kissing their deceased loved one. I finally found Dan. He was sitting up, chatting with nurses and sipping a beverage. The upside is I now know what he looks like dead. It should lessen the shock factor if anything ever happens to him. But I hope he outlives me. He is my muse, as you know, from 43 years of conversations with Dan. Anyway.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like so many mixed emotion. Is Dan still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just like making sure,
This
he
just
didn't.
happened a couple of months ago.
Okay, so what part is fiction and what part?
None of that's fictional. That is a true story.
That
If that family had come in, I would have been mortified. Can you imagine? Jennifer, they didn't have him covered up. You know how when someone dies, they put the sheet over their head? Well, the fact that they hadn't tells me they were about to bring the family back there. And I'm bent over with my lips literally inches from his. But he looked so much like my husband. Just dead-ish.
wow.
What can I say?
Wow. I mean, there's like, what can you say with that? That's just it. Let's talk about this 43 years together. Junior.
Yeah, how about that?
Wow.
And we found out we were expecting our first child on month month 3 of our marriage. We got married 3 months later. We were expecting. 12 months after that, we were expecting again. My girls are 12 months
And
apart.
then 12 months after that.
Well, 3 months after that. Yeah. 3 months after Megan was born, we were expecting Leslie. And then we waited 3 years and then we had our son, Christopher. But yeah, we've been through some times together, I tell you. But I'll tell you this, 43 years of marriage, and we've never ever raised our voices at one another. Our children like to tell their friends about that, but they never once heard us yell at each other ever.
How, how, how did you do that? Now we're getting on to your personal
Um,
part. Now we talked about the book. Now,
he
43 years.
Yeah, he came to the realization early on that I was always right.
Oh, you got a smart one.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever I say is, no, I'm kidding.
I'm like, what's the secret? I
No, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. We've had a lot of fun together, and we did a crazy thing moving to Myrtle Beach the way we moved to Myrtle Beach and in retirement, and we've never regretted it. We absolutely love it here.
That's wonderful.
I don't know if I told you this, but one day Dan came in the house in Georgia and he said, "What do we own after 40 years of marriage that we want to spend thousands of dollars to move?" And I said, "I don't know." Well, turns out it was nothing. So with the help of an attorney, we identified some families that were in need and we furnished their homes from top to bottom. And we moved to Myrtle Beach with 2 lawn chairs, an air mattress, and a lot of artwork. And can I just tell you, Jennifer, air mattresses are meant from people who really prefer to sleep in the floor, just not at first. So, like you go to bed at night on the air mattress, then you wake up the next morning, you're in the floor, you know. But anyway, we did that March of 2020. And then the world shut down, as you recall. And we're like, well, we don't have a coffee pot, you know? And, but it was great. It was like being honeymooners all over again, moving into this beautiful home with nothing.
Wow. And then you guys get to start all over and redo it and
Well,
design it.
technically, we did that twice because then in 2023, we got hit with a tornado that did major damage to this house and totaled my car. So, yeah, we had to start over kind of twice, but you know, we
You just,
walked out of that tornado smiling from ear to ear. And my neighbors were like, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "Because we're alive. We survived this, you know. We're
yeah,
the only house that got hit on our street." So, yeah.
that's incredible. So, okay, you guys didn't raise your voice at each other, and you just like, how long did it take before you guys okay, let's get married? Did it take long? Did you guys date long? Were you guys high
No,
school sweethearts?
no. It's really weird because you asked me, when you sent me the questionnaire, you asked me about favorite song. And I know it's a very strange love song, but Mac the Knife, which is basically about a serial killer, gangster, is our song. But it's because I was teaching school at the time, and I was in the teachers' lounge, and a conversation came up about music, and I said, "Well, Mac the Knife by Bobby Darin is my favorite song. It was #1 the day I was born, and I've always loved it." And they said, "Oh, we know this guy you got to meet. He sings it better than Bobby Darin." And so they introduced us. And that's how we met, was because of that song, Mac the Knife. And we dated about a year before we got married. And yeah,
Okay, so how did it flow so well for 43 years? What advice or yeah, advice that you can share with us?
sure. Two things: separate closets, separate checking accounts. It's very simple. You think I'm kidding? Most marriages get in trouble over finances, and we keep ours separated. And and so it provides a privacy in that area that, well, actually, his checking account is actually a joint checking account, but I have always insisted on having, even when I was a stay-at-home mom, I had my own checking account, and he, took care of making sure it had plenty in it. But yeah, I think when you take that out of the equation, and I think joint checking accounts are terrible for a marriage. And we never had that. So I think I always give that advice to young brides. Get
Mm.
your own checking account.
So it's like my money is my money, but your money is our money.
Well, yeah, no, it does. It does. But for women, it's protection, Jennifer. It is. It's protection, and um, it just is. And separate closets. Oh my God, you could give me a closet the size of the Taj Mahal, and I still don't want to share it with anybody. I want, I want my own closet.
Feel
That's
you
like
with
sharing a toothbrush.
that. I love it. I mean, it's rare that, you meet people who've been married more than 10 years these days.
Really? Well, that's sad.
It
But
is.
I keep it simple, the simple pleasures of life, simple rules to live by. I'm not a very complicated person, you know.
And he sounds very supportive with you with all your books and your your writing.
He does. You know what he says about my art? He'll say, I don't care if you make money, but for Pete's sake, reduce your inventory. So, okay, I'll do a show. I'll do something, get rid of some of it, you know.
That's so amazing. You guys sound like such a beautiful team, and to go through life for 43 years and have a family, move, you know, you were able to be a stay-at-home mom. That just your life sounds so like
Yeah.
ideal, like what America says this is how it should be, got a home,
Yeah.
your family, a white picket fence, you
Yeah.
know, that sounds so
And,
lovely.
those conversations that I have with him that appear between the stories in the book,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, they're so funny and so fun and so real. There's one in there, Jennifer, where um, we had he came in really sad. We have these mourning doves. Are you familiar with mourning doves?
The turtle doves?
Are they the same thing? I don't know if they're the same
They
thing or
are.
not. But anyway, we have a pair of them in our backyard, and this Dan was clearing pine straw off of the pergola out back, and he came in and he said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there was a bird nest up there, and there's a baby bird on the ground. And I went out there. This is one of the conversations we have in the book. And I said, well, Dan, I think that as I recall, Dan's a huge Andy Griffith fan. And I said, as you recall, there was an episode of Andy Griffith where Opie Taylor shot a bird's nest down with a slingshot or a shotgun. I can't remember which yet. And his dad and Sheriff Taylor made him feed those little babies, with a dropper and a tissue box. And Dan looked at me and he goes, winking, blinking, and nod. And I went, what? He goes, that was their names. Winking, blinking, and nod. And I said, do you want me to get you a tissue box? And he goes, absolutely not. So a little bit later, he comes running in. He goes, come out here. Don't you? And he had taken one of those deep plastic dishes, like microwave stuff comes in, and screwed it to the top of the pergola, drilled some drainage holes in it, put some pine straw in it, and there's that. And he's put that baby bird up there. I said, Dan, that is never going to work. And before I could get the word work out of my mouth, Mama Bird flew into that nest and settled in with that baby.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, because usually birds don't do that. Like if
I
you touch
know.
their nest, they won't go near it.
I know. And they say if you touch a baby bird, you smell like it and the mother won't go near it. I think that's all a bunch of baloney because that mother bird just settled right in there with that little baby. And Dan was as proud as any daddy bird could ever be. But anyway, that's an example of one of the funny, they're humorous. It's not ever making fun of him or anything like that. They're just humorous little day-to-day conversations that we have. Um,
Oh, Penny, that just sounds so lovely. Like just
yeah.
the interaction, and we get to read this in your book, and 43 years. Wow. And thank you for sharing that little true story at the end. I can't believe that was real. You almost kissed a string.
But I do want you to know that most of the stories going in that book are fictional. Very few are actually true. It's just hard to read an excerpt from a fictional story. Um, it because it's out of context and it just, it's difficult to do. Um, but I'm very proud of them. The first one in the book is called Hot Stuff, and it is a very hot and steamy story about a refrigerator in love with a stove. And I will go ahead and say this, it ends tragically. So,
There you guys have it. Some interesting books from Penny. Her information will be in the description. But before we even end, Penny,
yes, ma'am.
I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So, I mean, you just have this incredible background, experience in your life. What is one piece of wisdom you wish your younger self had known?
I think the biggest thing, um, and this actually appears in a short story in the book, is not to let anyone step on my creativity. And I
Mm.
had that happen to me as a child. I had a teacher, we were supposed to be drawing a tree, and she jerked the pencil out of my hand and said, "You're not drawing it right." And she took over my drawing and finished the tree for me. And something happened in me, Jennifer. It happened to me to this day. My art is mixed media because I cannot draw, and my drawing, it still looks like a child drew it if I try to draw anything. And I believe because that teacher destroyed creativity within my brain, and I've struggled to get that creativity back. I've fought for it. And so that is the biggest thing, that I would say to my younger self, is to not listen to her, not take that personal like I did.
Well, Penny, we know that's not true because you drew a cow and sold it for $700.
But I never drew it, Jennifer. I painted it. I never drew it.
Aren't they the same?
No,
No?
no, no. Sketching with a pencil, I cannot do.
Really? So you just paint and
Mhm.
voila, the magic happens.
I paint until I like something, you know,
Mm,
um, but, that's what I do.
that's what you do. You do so many things. And one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you feel at this moment in time that you feel is important to share with our audience? What you feel that they should know from your own experience?
Um, be kind to one another, and surround yourself with as many girlfriends as you can. And friends of any kind. Couples friends are great too, but have girlfriends. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
But, go out to lunch, go to the movies, surround yourself with kindness.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, beautiful souls, if today's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that you're not walking alone in this path. I invite you to follow and subscribe to Sacred Her Story podcast. Thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more about Penny, her information will be in the description. And Penny, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story and more stories to read and your
Thank you,
truth.
Jennifer. I will send some books out to you.
Oh, yes, I want you to sign it, please.
Okay, will do. I will do that.
Until then, everyone, we are Sacred Her, sacred, highly exalted rebel. It is saying yes to ourselves and trusting in our own inner wisdom. Thank you.